We don't test on animals. We test on men. That's a good boy. Drink up. Let him know how good it is.
Betty Buzz.
I know this sounds dramatic, but when I read today's New York Times article about the legal fight between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, I was honestly surprised. I expected it to clearly support Blake, but instead, it felt strangely neutral. The article talked about her claims and his defense, but it completely ignored something that used to be a big part of this story, the so-called smear campaign. That word wasn't even mentioned once. And that immediately made me pause, because not long ago everyone was talking about how Hollywood could bury anyone. Now suddenly that narrative seems to have disappeared. The focus is only on her harassment claims. They briefly mention retaliation, but only in passing, like it's not even important anymore. What really stood out to me is that most legal experts now agree her claims probably won't survive in court. One expert explained that while many people might feel her experiences were inappropriate, the legal standard for harassment is much stricter than public opinion. Something can feel uncomfortable and still not meet the legal definition. And this matters a lot, because if her harassment claims fail, then her retaliation argument also becomes weak. You can't really claim illegal retaliation if the original complaint doesn't hold up. There's also an important comparison in this article with another case involving a reality TV star who sued over inappropriate questions. The judge threw out those claims because she knowingly signed up for that environment. And that's exactly what Justin's lawyers are saying here too. Blake agreed to work on a film that involved mature themes. Conversations like that were part of the job. So when you look at past rulings, it becomes very hard to believe her case will succeed. Now let's talk about her deposition, because this is where things get really interesting. In court, she has to stick to what she said under oath. She can't change her story later. When her lawyer asked how this smear campaign damaged her career, the facts didn't really support her claims. If you look at her work history, she hasn't been consistently busy for years. She went long periods without doing movies even before this controversy. So it's hard for her to argue that someone suddenly destroyed her career. During questioning, she kept trying to shift timelines and avoid giving clear answers. When asked if she had received any offers, she even said she didn't know what offer of employment meant. That honestly sounded unbelievable for someone who has worked in this industry for so long, especially since she is suing as an employee. If she didn't understand employment, she wouldn't even have a case. Later, it turned out there were announcements about her being. Her testimony looked questionable. This is where her own strategy keeps hurting her. On one hand, she tells the public she's doing great, still popular, still successful. On the other hand, in court, she claims everything was taken from her. You can't have it both ways. A jury will notice that. Then she talked about how her family was harmed. Of course, I feel sorry for her children. They don't deserve to be in this situation. But honestly, a lot of this damage seems to come from continuing this lawsuit instead of moving on. Another moment that looks bad is when she admitted she was honored on major most influential lists. Again, how does that match the idea that her life and career were destroyed? It doesn't. It makes her look inconsistent. Now let's talk about the Sony executive's deposition, because this might be one of the most damaging parts for her case. He openly admitted that Sony was behind the "Bring Your Friends, Wear Your Florals" marketing campaign. That campaign caused huge backlash, yet Blake keeps blaming Justin and his team for it. But here we have someone from Sony saying it was their responsibility. They organized pop-up shops, influencer events, themed activities, and even alcohol promotions. All of it came from Sony's marketing strategy. So the big question is, if Sony created the campaign that caused backlash, why isn't Blake suing Sony? The answer is obvious. They are powerful. They have huge legal teams. Suing them would damage her and her husband's future in Hollywood, so she avoids it. What makes this even worse is that the same executive praised her for being involved in every part of the movie: editing, marketing, production, everything. That destroys the image of her being powerless. If she had that much influence, how can she now claim she had no control? It doesn't make sense. Then there's the expert report from her side. Another paid expert who says he isn't even deciding whether harassment actually happened. He's just assuming it did and then explaining what should have happened. That's weak. You can't argue that people failed to investigate something if you can't prove there was anything serious to investigate. On top of that, in her own letter to the Producers Guild, Blake claimed she handled HR issues herself. She basically said she was the go-to person for crew problems. So if something went wrong, she was part of the system responsible for dealing with it. That hurts her argument even more. When you put everything together, the depositions, the evidence, her own statements, and the expert reports, a clear pattern appears. The more information comes out, the worse her case looks. Her story keeps changing. Responsibility keeps shifting. And major facts don't line up with her claims. Instead of proving she was a victim with no power, the evidence shows she had influence, support, recognition, and continued opportunities. That's why I believe this case is not going to end the way she hopes. Anyway, that's my breakdown for today. If you found this interesting, make sure you're still subscribed, because some people say they get unsubscribed without realizing it. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Today I want to talk about something that a lot of people are whispering about, but very few are saying out loud. And that is the so-called secret story behind Blake Lively and everything that's been happening around her lately. On the surface, she still looks perfect, successful, smiling on red carpets, living a dream life. But behind the scenes, things don't seem that simple. For months now, insiders and reporters have been hinting that her legal fight with Justin Baldoni is not just about what she claims. There are rumors about power struggles on set, about who really controlled the movie, and about how much influence she actually had. Some people who worked on the project say she wasn't just acting. She was deeply involved in editing, marketing, and even in creative decisions. That already changes the whole story, because if you have that much control, it's hard to say you were powerless. Then there's the role of her husband, Ryan Reynolds. Many sources believe he was quietly helping her manage her image, using his connections to protect her reputation and keep her popular. From award nominations to magazine features, people think a lot of that didn't happen by accident. It looks more like a carefully planned PR strategy. Another secret people talk about is how her career slowdown didn't really start with this case. Even before all this drama, she wasn't doing many major movies. So when she says this situation ruined her career, some insiders say that's not fully true. The decline started earlier, but now it's being blamed on someone else. There are also whispers about how some important messages, emails, and documents haven't been made fully public yet. According to people close to the case, if everything comes out, it could seriously damage her image. That's why her team is fighting so hard in court, not just to win, but to control the narrative. What surprises me the most is how different her public personality is from what we hear behind closed doors. In interviews, she looks calm and confident. But in private, sources say she is extremely careful, calculating every move, every statement, every appearance. Nothing is random. Everything is planned. At this point, it feels less like a simple legal fight and more like a battle over reputation and legacy. Who will be remembered as the victim and who will be blamed? That's what this is really about. And the truth is, no matter how this case ends, a lot of hidden details are already leaking out. People are starting to see a different side of her, not just the glamorous actress, but a powerful player who knows how to protect herself. In my opinion, the real story isn't about one argument on a movie set. It's about fame, influence, image control, and how far celebrities will go to stay on top. And as more information comes out, I think many fans will be shocked by what they learn.